There you go. All right, cool.
All right, and it's live. So, today, people, we're not going to say hey to the internet, but we're going to make children's noise to the internet. Hey, internet!
Oh God.
We're to say hi to you. And yes, like, not.
I'm not sure if I can do that. Yeah.
I
I could.
Apparently, children have antennas. But you
They
know what?
can.
Speaking of children, they do. They're super intuitive, right?
They are. They are.
Yeah,
These are
and
the
like,
intuitive antennas.
oh yeah, and like, here's the thing. So let's introduce ourselves regarding like first who we are and how much are we in touch with our inner child today. So to start off, I'm Andy, the host of the show, and I think I'm supposed to get Michael up, but somehow he's not here. That and for today, I want to tell the audience I just blasted by the fact that I am back with who I am. That childlike personality of mine because seriously, I had to admit being an adult is just exhausting. I had to admit that. So pretty much like I want to spend this time to thank all the children and dedicate this show for just them to know that what they're doing is right. That they should keep up that good work for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So who wants to start
Agreed.
first?
First. Okay. Um. Let's see. My name's Matt. And what else do I say? What I've done all week, or what?
Well, how are you in touch with your inner child? Are you do you just play like do you play games a lot?
Yeah, I'm playing one right now.
Well,
Games all
tell
the
us all
time.
about it. Come on, it's time for you to be a child again.
Um, I spend most of my days playing video games and nothing else really. Well, I do like to go walk around and just take pictures of stuff too. I guess kids like to do that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure about anything else. Oh, I don't like waking up early, and I'm not a fan of school.
There you go. So, inner child all the way.
All the way, all the way. All right, Zoe. I guess you, since you made that antenna, we're gonna pick you first.
Oh, goody. Okay, well, hi, I'm Zoe. How am I in touch with my inner child? Well, I suppose, like many people, I could probably be more in touch with my inner child. Um, I'm 19, so I'm definitely at a weird crossroads in life where I'm on the verge of becoming an adult and doing adult things like getting a license and getting a job and graduating college. It's pretty intense. Uh, but I don't know. I think I'm still pretty childlike. Um, One thing I think about when I think about my childhood is, I don't know, not that I didn't think about anything, but I felt like I had less mental activity going on. Like I was much more in the present. So what do you guys think about that?
I can relate to you. Like,
Um,
especially with I can relate to you with, like getting a job and everything because I'm 18 and I just graduated high school and I don't want to get a job. Like, I really don't want to, but I have to.
I know, it's weird. It's like you're forced, like a little hamster into a wheel. It's just like, no, I don't wanna. But
well, my name is AJ. Going down the line, and how do I embrace my inner child? I think that a lot of it comes out. I'm going to buy a kite soon because I've been wanting to fly a kite for the longest time, and I told my friend that we really need to go out to the park and fly kites and start getting into stuff that we used to do as kids, just because a lot of that stuff we don't do anymore. Play board games and you like do all that fun stuff that doesn't really require that much money, but you have that free time and free space to spend with yourself and just enjoy, I guess, the better things of life that as adults you kind of miss. And I'm about to be 33, so I've lived that 19 through 20s and getting to another state. And what tends to happen, and especially with us going from the Piscean age to going to the age of Aquarius, and this big paradigm shift that's been occurring, is that a lot of people are starting to say, I don't want to work for anybody else. I want to create my own thing. So that way, whatever feels good with my spirit, I can basically do, which is what kids do. Kids create their own fun. They create their own. It doesn't really take much, but whatever idea they have, they kind of run with it. So instead of being thrown out there and saying, I have to have a job, I have to go ahead and have a mortgage, and I have to have this, people they start becoming more aware of, well, actually, I can build for myself, and I can live on basically, I can live in an eco-friendly house that I don't have to pay bills. And so that takes care of one of the problems. So now I can start living my life as free as I really want to and be the kid that I really want to be and learn how to live in an off-grid society to where we don't have to be dependent upon the government. And the government's kind of like what kills the childhood within us. I feel it's a big part of why we feel like we have to do certain things and we have to meet this measure, and that's not necessarily true. So that's my point on that.
And I know another way you let your inner child out. You like dancing.
Oh yeah, it's true. That is true. I like dancing a lot.
It's fun. I'm about to go dancing tonight, so I'm all dressed up.
That is awesome. That's a spirituality sense that's just as awesome, and that is an inner child thing. That, you know what? Thank you. That's probably one of the best. Probably one of the biggest ones. I don't even know why I let that one out. Thanks, Matt.
That's all right. I got you. I know.
Yes, you got my back. It's probably because it's been so long. It's been over 2 weeks that I haven't gone dancing, and I've been like kind of missing it. So, and I've been trying to be good, but I think that there's going to be a night that I'm going to have to go out and get a little ratchet. Not going to lie.
You have to every now.
Every now and then, got to. It's a release, and it's going to be more of, thank goodness I'm back around, because I can't be with all those people all the time. Like, I had met this one guy that I used to go out with all the time, and I was crossing the street. He's like, oh, let me give you a ride. And I'm like, okay. He's like, I haven't seen you at Firestone in a while. I'm like, no, I've been trying to really focus on work because I'm really trying to get to Denver and trying to do other things. And he's like, well, sometimes you need to step back. But I'm like, yeah, but disconnect like for a while is never good either. So I need to go out and dance. And I said, when I go out and dance, I do like 8 hours straight. Don't touch me. I'm sweaty. It is what it is. But like, I'm not cute with it. Like, I'm good at it, but I'm definitely not cute. I'll let the sweat flow. I'm just like, hey, don't touch me. Y'all already know. You already know what it is. And that's my worship time. So, that's my inner child. It is. Where's Andy? Where is the host of this conversation?
I don't know. He keeps saying he's like leaving and joining and leaving again.
Okay.
So should I tell my
Internet
story?
problems.
Yes, Kevin, please.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yo, I'm Kevin. I'm 22 years young, and I refuse to grow up because growing up is a trap. I grow out. I expand.
Nice.
Growing up limits. I expand outwards. I go in all directions. I experience everything because life is about full experience. To stay youthful, to stay joyous, to remain a kid, you have to expand outwards in every direction. You have to explore everything. You have to live life to the fullest. Live life through your heart. If your heart tells you to do something, you do it. Fuck what the brain says. It's all about living through the heart, expressing yourself fully, not being afraid, being free in every sense of the word. Anything that locks you away from being free, anything that puts you in the state of fear and not freedom, you avoid. Stay free, stay expanding, never grow old.
It's my first time. It's my first time meeting you, and I already like you.
I know, right? He was just preaching right now. I feel like he took it to church.
I'll be right back.
Awesome.
You deserve a break, intro.
What's up?
I said he said he'll be right back. I said he deserves a break after that intro.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good word. And Andy is speaking sidebar.
It's like I don't even know. He just disappeared.
This does he gets finished. Oh, that was a good word. But it's absolutely true what he said.
Yeah.
Uh, that you really you can't grow old, and it's never you're never too old not to do anything. You never get to that. You should never get to that spot where you're like, I can't do it because it's this. It should never happen. You should try and keep the youthfulness as long as possible. I know I do.
Alright. So I think I have to go, unfortunately.
Have fun.
The universe is calling me to
I,
become my inner child and dance.
yay! I know. Have
Have
fun. Dance for
fun.
me too.
Definitely, definitely. Alright, bye guys. Much
Take
love.
care.
Bye.
Mm.
So, what's the difference between child and the adult psychologically? Hmm.
I think the adult, they can like control themselves and they know what's wrong and what's right, where little kids, they don't know, so they just go and do it. Like we have that sense of knowing what will happen if we do this, or like this is not right to do, so I shouldn't do it. And while like little kids, they'll just go and do it, and then after they'll realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Well, I think that that's one of the things too is that fear is never really instilled in kids until they're told that it needs to be there. So that's one of the things that as adults we're so programmed to do because we're so used to I've gone through this experience or I've seen this, so I'm going to build walls and boundaries here as to where kids are much more free. And I think that most of the time they have a sense of what's right and wrong at a certain level. I mean, once you get to a certain age, there's certain innate things that is wrong just because you know in your spirit it's wrong. I think that you have a close sense of spirit to where you're sort of guided that way. Now, I mean, and that's where uh, technology, television, a lot of outside influences have a big play into how a kid grows up and how he turns out. I feel as an adult, we are so set in our ways, and it's so hard to break that because we are programmed from the beginning when we start in school to think a certain way, to do things a certain way. This is the way that it should be done, and that creates rigid forces within our mind, and it's hard to break down that wall once you get to a certain place, and a lot of that's done more in a spiritual aspect and getting back to that inner child. So I think that's the difference between the child psychologically.
Yeah.
And as you're born, I mean, even in psychology, they say that whenever a child is born, everything in their mind is like straight rods. So they retain information, it goes in very well, and as the brain starts forming, it starts losing connections, it starts coiling around, and then the connections become a little distorted. So certain things become rigid, and sometimes we kill off certain things by the intake of drugs and other things that sort of like suppress a lot of things inside the mind. So that can take a toll on a lot of things. And it's all about creating positive forces and positive connections within the mind and getting back to I guess that whole mentality of we should always be learning something. We should always be trying to gain information in one level and to train our minds into just being more humble, I guess you could say, maybe.
Hmm. Like that's what happened with a lot of people now when they grow up. They lose their emotion because of experiences they've had. Like they start,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like they start to not care about other people.
Yeah, they become rigid and fearful.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to listen to y'all's conversation. I actually was on two computers, but then the reason why I'm out is because I was actually got thrown out of the internet because of my computer. That's all. Nothing big. But like going back to what you said, yeah, like I do notice how a lot of adults, like whenever you got into so much danger, you always had that fear that you're like it's almost like as though you're gonna die. You know,
Hmm.
it's going to risk your life. Versus a child, he's like, do I really care? They
Hmm.
always give that impression with you, but like, what is it that makes us fear of death or fear of this lost when all that is just us going back to who we are, you know?
Fear, false evidence appearing real.
Hello.
Yeah, and especially like here's the funny thing. Like I've read from this one presentation, I bet AJ heard about this, but this story involves a little child interviewing God. One day, that child came to God and asked, God, can I ask you a question about something? He said, sure. What is it? And then the child asked, what is it so special about humans that you notice the most and that you like most? And God said, that's because I noticed something really odd about them is that every time whenever they were young, they always felt like they need to get older, be more mature. But when they get older already to the point where they're like at a point where they can't take care of themselves, they want to be young again, and like they keep running to find wealth and to they sacrifice their health to get wealth, and later on
Hmm.
pay for their own health when it deteriorates. It's funny,
That's true.
and
That's true. That's a true statement.
I was like, okay, so if being an adult is not the main thing of what life is all about, then what is it? Is it just simply being a child that matters?
Living in the now.
Right.
Because that's what I noticed from a lot of children is that when it comes to like, there's this one time I actually had this one child that I work with. He got into a fight with another child, and they were all they know is that they want to get angry. That's all. But when I broke up the fight and I asked them what is it that they want from one another, and not after just only a couple minutes, they got along with one another, and that they only know that they have forgotten whatever's happened like 2 or 3 minutes ago. Versus us is like if we get into a fight with another adult, we
Hold a
just don't seem to get used
grudge.
to it.
And they
It's like
don't like we
regret.
don't have like this that much.
And
Right.
then like
Exactly.
if we were to have like some people get into a grudge, they all of a sudden like they want to kill that other person if you're like really really bad. That happens a lot. Like even in countries nowadays, you notice how even when adults they fight one another, they would get to the point where they want to wage wars against one another. That's funny.
Hmm.
It's like what part
Yeah. Luckily,
of yeah. Like go ahead, AJ.
luckily in our group, luckily in our group of people, I don't think that anybody here beside Kevin. I don't think that he was in a room, but I don't think that we've been in a fight in our lives. I know Matt hasn't. I know I haven't. Have you ever been in a fight, Andy?
Oh yeah, plenty of times, and I was like,
You've been in-
I think I lost touch with my inner child a lot of times, and then like, how in the world did that happen? I thought this is like, I thought this is supposed to be a game, right? And like, there's many times where I just have a game for where I just play a game with people, and the next thing you know, if I lost, I blew it. Like that was when I was 10.
Well,
I
there's
don't
no
see
winning.
10-year-olds like that in my end.
Well, there is no winning or losing. It's more just a learning experience. I think that that's part of the problem. There's a lot of things that have been indoctrinated within the way society should quote unquote be. One is that to be successful, you have to do certain things. You have to go to college. You have to abide by these rules. But the funny thing is that the way the system's set up is that you do this and yet you're automatically in debt once you go to school, unless you like get a scholarship and you get everything paid for. You might as well, if you take out student loans, you might as well forget about it. You're automatically on your road to giving right back into the government. It's sort of like the way the system's set up. So it's funny in how they tell you to do certain things, but then you start realizing that you're really more controlled than you're not as free as you really think that you are. You're in a controlled system, and it's set up there for a reason. So they really kind of control your feelings and emotions, because when you're in this rigorandum of life, of which we call it, where we have to pay for this and pay for that and stressing about if you have a girlfriend or you have a kid and where is this going to be coming from, and a lot of that stress causes fear in most of us, and then what happens is you lose sense of self, and it becomes, now I'm just doing this to take care of the problem, to take care of the issue, instead of really looking more inwardly on yourself. And I think that's a big problem with the United States, and going down even with how we control our emotions with other people. I think a lot of people want, because they feel like to rationalize within themselves, they would have to take their emotions out on somebody else, and they can dominate, or they can be in control of something, and that's where they get their strength. And it's sad, because instead of doing it in a positive aspect, they'd rather tear somebody down to make themselves feel better, and that's not good
Mm-hmm.
in any way.
Like,
And that's what
the thing.
capitalism breeds.
Right, exactly.
Right, and like that's the thing. But the problem is that, do we have to tear people down? Because I could have sworn that we can construct one another, and I've seen some societies that construct one another, and they can still thrive.
Iceland's a good representation of that.
Yeah, like countries like Bhutan is doing a great job on that one.
Well, I know that Iceland, what they did, they basically overthrew their banking system, because the
Oh,
bankers came in and they tried to say, because everything was privately done, and they tried to put it on a big scale, and these bankers came in and totally drove down their economy, and they overthrew the bankers and the government and got these people out of office, and we're like, nope, we're
They
not
threw
doing
him
it
in
this
jail.
way. Yeah, yeah, like that's what I'm talking about. Like that's the way you do things. When something is done and your people are being, and it's just, everybody is a human whole, and you think that this is okay, you need to take a stand and say something about that. And the United States is not taking that, is not really at that point yet, but it needs to happen. It's getting to that point to where I think there's about to be a revolution that started within this country about, like, the government is effing up. We're tired. We're tired of all these big bankers, and you got J.P. Morgan and all these people that are bailed out, but then you have other people that are creating things on the internet, in which we have free speech, that are getting taken to jail, and government officials going, FBI agents, trying to throw them under the bus, trying to have them jailed for 30 plus years for public domain information that shouldn't be held. I mean, information should be information that we should all have rights to, but since the government wants to make money and charge for that information, which is illegal, it's like big stuff. But this is the country that we live in, and we think that's okay. So as long as the people that are in the higher hierarchies can go ahead and do whatever they want and say, well, we can make money off of this, it's okay. But if there's a creative sense that says, no, we need understanding, we need knowledge to know we're going to diffuse that, then that's a total backward society. Sorry, just is.
I
Just
agree.
is. And I think that it's getting to the point where people are getting really tired. They're getting sick and tired of this going on. And I think the shift is about to change to where there's about to be a revolution, and it's about time. That's all I gotta say about that.
You don't think it's bound to happen? Like,
What's up?
like you said, you think. I don't think you think.
It's bound to happen. It's gonna happen, but nobody. I'm not gonna say nobody. I'm saying that I think that people are just starting to become prepared. They're starting to set themselves up and embrace themselves with knowledge of. I've been trying to do study with law on my own, on what legal basis I should have, so if anything does happen and I am jailed at maybe a protest or a stand-in, I know what my legal rights are to where they can't mess with me. Like, that's it. I need to know that stuff. So I'm going to be 2 steps ahead of the game before it happens. So that way I've already set myself,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely
so
going to
that,
happen, but the one thing that we have to remember is that the whole reason why it's happening is because we're all going to be masters. So the important thing is not to get lenient, just being comforted by the fact that there's so many other people doing the same thing. Everyone has to become a master. Everyone has to do the work where before only one person in 100 years would do, like every Martin Luther
well,
King, every Albert Einstein. We all have to be that one person of the generation. We all have to be the master
well,
together.
I think that that's what everything is coming to right now. That's what I was talking about before, as in we left the Piscean age and we're going to the age of Aquarius, and now it's more about a spiritual thing, and it's the whole intent in it, and that's why this group got really started, and the paradigm's just been going. Matter of fact, let me post to you something I sent to. Um, I sent this to Matt earlier, and I think that this will open your eyes a little. Well, and I think that you are consciously know already, but this is also something that's going on, and it'll make sense when you see it. Hold on.
New Earth Project.
This is a good movie to watch.
Have you seen the newest Zeitgeist moving forward?
What's up?
Zeitgeist moving forward.
No, I've seen that before.
That one's really good. The third
That
one,
one's really.
final one, talking about a resource-based economy and how society would function without
Right.
money, and how everything would be operated just automatically by computers because all the variables are already accounted for. As soon as a resource is needed somewhere, it's known a week before through all the equations running and everything.
Right. I posted it in the sidebar. I don't know if you have that, but if you don't, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you online. Were you able to see it in the sidebar?
Yeah.
Okay. And I just watched that. Absolutely amazing. Matter of fact, it talks about the paradigm shift, and the CE is collective. It's collective evolution, which is actually an organization, and they started doing things in Canada, and it started branching out from there. And they're really starting to take steps in the community and awareness and teaching people as well that are on this conscious shift. And they started talking about the eco-friendly societies that can be created, and showed this one lady's house that she's completely off the grid, which is what I want to do eventually. And moving to Denver is what I want to acquire land and be able to live off the grid. I don't want to have any bills. I want to be self-sufficient. I want to not have to use the government in any way, shape, or form at all. Eventually, get down. I mean, of course, there is the bank system that I would have to use, but of course, and that right, there are certain things you're gonna have to use them for, but the least amount possible is the best, especially with food and other things.
Yeah, I'm moving towards an off-grid community too. Right now, I'm basically just getting all the information together, getting my whole understanding complete before I really start trying to get fully into it, but it's definitely coming.
Oh yeah, that's something that I feel very strongly about, because I've always been a part. I'm like a hippie at heart, I guess you could say, and the Rainbow Gathering is always something that I've always been attributed to and accustomed to. Like when the Rainbow Gathering comes to Ocala and Florida, I usually try and band everybody together and live out in the woods for 3 days, and it's so great the way that people live just through the barter system. And there's always somebody else trying to help somebody else, and there's always trades going on, and it's much more of a communal thing. But the love that's shown out there is something that we miss out in Babylon, which
Definitely.
this is what we consider
Well,
Babylon.
yeah, that's the thing, AJ. Like, but then you did mention about being a master in a time period like this.
Your mic's breaking out. I can't hear you.
I think
Oh,
he
you got
broke out.
he dropped.
I think he broke out. Okay, so Andy's gonna mention for what you said, Kevin, about the master thing, and I agree. everybody should take steps in doing that. But
Everybody
again,
has to be a master of at least one thing and attribute and use that mastery completely to help the rest of society. And if we all do that, we'll create the best society ever so quickly. Like our potential right now is already so high if we just apply it.
that is
Yeah.
that is a good point, Andy. How do you define a master?
A master would be anyone who basically it's about knowing. Like when you pick up a pen, you don't think about it, you already know you can. There's no thought process involved, it's just knowing. So when you're a master of something, you're at the point of just knowing it without even having to think about it. So basically, everybody is a master of walking, but being a master of walking isn't really benefiting society too much. Like, it's not doing anything. But if everyone becomes a master of a specific trait, like one person becomes a master of making efficient housing, like making houses that use very little resources, and they become such a master of it to where they've made so many that making another one completely different, like just redesigning it, but always redesigning so much, they get to the point where to add something to it, it doesn't even take thought process anymore. There's like, all right, this needs this, so I'm gonna use this, and it's just instantaneous. It's
You know
already
you know what I would consider that, and I totally am 100% with you, but I feel like the way that we were created, that's already been implemented.
yeah.
Everybody
It
has
is.
everybody has different traits that only are unique to them or that they resonate with.
We just
And
have to understand ourselves.
right, so that means that we need to start getting in touch with spirit because spirit will know exactly which way to go majority
Exactly.
of the times. That and I think that's one of the biggest things because you know, to me, I personally don't like building. I was never. I mean, I'm just saying. But there's certain things I need to figure out for myself. If I want to live off the grid, I know that I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to do it.
You know the
So,
basics at least.
what's up?
You're gonna have to know the basics at least to be able to manage it yourself.
I want to be able to do it myself. I want to build from the ground up. So there's certain things I'm gonna have to teach myself and
Yeah.
start learning because it's something that I know is going to be good for me in the long run and it's something beneficial. And once I know it, then I can pass my information down, and it's a way of accumulating some sort of monetary gain as well.
Yeah.
It just is. So
Passion
you
leads
know,
to profession.
right.
So sometimes that's indirect. Like your passion is to live off grid by yourself, but building it is it's an indirect part of it. So
Right.
being your passion is your profession, you're still gonna have to learn building, even though it's not a direct passion. It's indirect to your direct passion.
Right. Exactly.
So passion will always lead to what you need to
Hmm.
learn. Your
Yeah,
passion will lead
especially.
you to.
Do you guys notice how like there's this one phrase where when you brought up like the fact that you had to learn how to do things out of just your own passion and take it and like you take some of these so-called secondary stuff as a direct assistance to your own goal. What I did, you guys remind me of this one artist. I can't remember his name. He's Michelangelo, or I guess. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Michelangelo. He did once mention this: is that it took me only 1 hour to be a great artist, but it took me my whole life to actually draw like a child. And that's what's crazy. It's like how many great artists out there spends their whole entire life just drawing all sorts of crazy stuff. Like they're genius, but somehow it took them their whole life to learn how to think like a little child. That everything is just assisting them towards their own goal, and that everything is just the way it is. There's nothing to be all like picky about, because especially like Michelangelo, I read his stories. There are times he picks doing certain inventions, and when he doesn't like it, he throws it away. That goes with Albert Einstein, several art inventors. A lot of times. That's what I don't get. What do you guys think about that?
I think they do that because they see it a certain way able to see it unless they have like what they planned out because I'm the same way. I'll do something and I'll show it to my friend, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I'm like, I don't like it. That's not how I wanted it, so I won't like show other people until I get it to how I want it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. In
Yeah,
fact,
that
like
makes
that's
sense.
yeah, that's what's weird about it. You know, it's like what about you, Kevin?
What?
Like about how some artists and major artists like Michelangelo or any other incredible artists, like they would create an incredible work where everyone will be like, "That is genius," but to them is like, "That is not good enough," and they throw it away, never to look at it again.
Well, because we're always expanding, we're always growing, as long as we focus on expanding. And any person who achieves greatness is all about expansion. So every work they create is only the best work at the time. They're going to continue to get better because that's what they live to do. They live
But
to
like that's
expand.
the thing. Is it just simply like because when
It's a
they do
process of continuing growth,
yeah,
as
like when
Bruce Lee
you
would
guys brought
say.
up like the fact that we are continuously growing no matter how many times we are growing old, you did brought up the concept of the divine feminine, but however, the divine masculine is the one that always like had that feeling where, oh, we're not good enough. We need to we need to like make it better, or oh, this is not well worth my time. We throw it away. A lot of times it
I think
doesn't
it could go either way.
really go either way. How?
It could go with like that with the divine feminine too.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing. Divine feminine is like you guys mentioned that it's all about creativity, about creating stuff. Like for example, like if I have this iPod right here, this or this iPhone, this is just an iPhone. If I'm thinking out of the divine feminine, but if I were divine masculine, I was like, how fast is this phone? Is this good enough for me? And then next thing you know, I was like, okay, how good is enough? And we just keep climbing, you know. But the problem is if we were to keep climbing and we leave with that sense of dissatisfaction, how do we continue to grow constructively? Like, how does that fit into the picture? That's what I don't get. Many times we always thought that we had to be constructive with ourselves, but somehow we always set expectations, and when we already meet them, we already sense like we're getting bored, you know.
Well, what do you think, Andy?
Well, I personally like when I was a child, that somehow like it has a lot to do with how we were indoctrinated. But like that's just one piece of the story. There are some people I know of that like it doesn't matter if they're indoctrinated or not. Somehow they have that already that sense of wanting to expect themselves. Like, how do you guys think about those type of people? Aren't they expecting themselves too much, or what?
I think it's all about living through passion because, like you said, you can only go up so much before you start getting bored. So, how I meant by growing out and not growing up, when you grow up, you're just going in one direction up. You're on one topic, increasing how good you are at it. When you grow outwards, once one part's so high, you move into the other ones. You raise them up too. You move on to some other ones. You move those up too, and you find them through your passion. Your heart always tells you what you want to be doing at the time. So if you're
Hmm.
always listening to your heart 100%, and as soon as you want to do something, you drop what you're doing and go do that, you'll never end up being bored in anything because you're always doing what you want to do. And because you want to do it at that time, you're doing it at your best possible potential because science has already shown that the brain works better when someone wants to be doing something.
Right,
Right. So
exactly,
like
Kevin. In fact,
you're growing but never up
yeah, exactly. Do you guys realize that when you brought that up, that does remind me of
because
some
it's
of
a
the coaching practice
crystallization
that yeah, especially
to
like the coaching practice, the visualization and everything. Like that's what I always study in psychology. Like if you if you stop thinking or setting expectations for your clients, and instead you do what we call growing outwards and help like reorganize their growing outwards in such a way that accomplishes their goals. They begin to accomplish their goals in a quicker fashion, and not only they do a lot better. Like this one example, I don't know if you guys would agree with this or how would you guys think, but I read on this one psychiatric document documentary of this one doctor in Italy. His I don't know his name, or if I do know, it's pretty complex. But he was going through this psychiatric hospital where some of his clients are actually some of the most violent of the clients. Some of them would even pull, like if you're around the 1800s, like those clients, they would pull your hair, they would beat you up because they have severe schizophrenia. And then next thing you know, instead of spending the time and put too much expectation on the client by restraining them or by electrocuting, electroshock, or even going to drug therapy, he instead give them a very compassionate environment where they can be themselves and grow outwards. And he took them to the park. Like, if you guys can help me name like all the best things, best activities that you would do to a child, they would do it the same way. Like he would do the same way. But like the funny thing is just only 2 months later, just 2 months later, they check back on the psychiatric ward again. All the clients that were diagnosed with severe schizophrenia, they ended up like
It's
recovering
good to see you, Matt.
completely.
Yeah, I know. AJ was telling me
Like,
that earlier.
they literally completely
It's been a
recovered
while,
to the
man.
point where they don't even have to take drugs anymore. Like, you guys know how does that work on the human mind, like compassion, or like how does that
Wait,
help
I'm
grow
kind of
outward?
lost. What was the question?
It's like, how does compassion help you grow outwards? Because the thing is so many times people we were reminded over and over that we should love one another. But
How
how
does
does that
compassion
benefit
grow,
us?
help you grow outwards?
Yeah,
Hmm.
love, compassion, sex.
Compassion, I think, is one of the strongest emotions or vibrations. So to have compassion, it's kind of like you understand why a person was the way that they were, because I don't know, they may have had something passed down to them or whatever, and they didn't take the time to study or learn, or they just didn't know, so you have compassion and you kind of understand.
I also
Helps you
think,
understand everything a lot better, I think.
yeah, and like I also think compassion, it helps you not think so negative about situations, and when someone does something bad, you don't get mad at them immediately. You like take a second and you're like, okay, you messed up. It's no big deal. I'm not gonna get mad at you for a little mistake.
I agree.
Right. That's and
So what about you, AJ?
I
Like,
think only compassion does that.
what about
That's
you,
true.
AJ? Because I think like in Christianity, we always been taught to love one another. Like the word love and compassion is so prevalent in the Bible that I was like a little shocked.
Uh-huh.
But that's
And it
isn't that
reminds
also
me,
in
and like even when I read compassion and how you guys define it, even Jesus, how he defined it in Christianity, it was so similar to how the Buddhist people,
yeah, that's
like
what I was
in
gonna say.
the Tibetan Buddhists, they actually talk about that type of compassion also. In fact, when I'm a practitioner of Tantric Buddhism, I had to show compassion to the point where I'm willing to, if if an enemy were to approach me and said, "Are you willing that he is in trouble?" Like I had to learn to set aside my grudge, and I had to stand up right in front of him and protect him.
Well, yeah,
That
that's what it says biblically, especially in Matthew. It talks a lot about that, and that's what really got me through, especially when I was at my highest point. when I was going through middle school, I was in 6th grade, and I used to always get ridiculed on the bus. The bus was the worst place. I think for any middle schooler, if they're on a bus, I feel for them because it was horrible. That shit going on the bus. I'm serious.
Oh yeah, the
It was
bus.
terrible.
I'll
And
never forget my bus driver's name. I had my bus driver in middle school. His name was Michael Jackson. Forget it.
Oh wow, poor
I'm not
man.
even kidding. It was a bold. His
Yeah,
name was
AJ,
Michael
I had to
Jackson.
agree with you. Here's my experience with the bus because when I was in the bus, it was ridiculous. Like
yeah, it's
I
bad.
got picked on and bullied. And
Well, what I
sometimes like one kid, they actually took my lollipop when I was about to eat it. And then I came home crying and got really upset about that.
That was when you were younger.
That was elementary school.
Someone took your lollipop.
Yeah, because I was eating it, dude.
And
I
how
just
did that
wanted
make
to
you feel?
I was so pissed at him. It's like, seriously, you took something that I was about to
Yeah,
eat.
but
Can you just ask?
that's what they call. That's when he really messed with your id. They say
Yeah.
because if because I mean you associate that with pleasure, and so if you weren't able to have that lollipop, and he's able to have it, you look at yourself different from him. But really, it's all kind of the same thing.
well in my instance, I was getting literally smacked around on the bus, and I always used to carry my Bible with me, especially in middle school. When I ride the bus, I was very quiet, and I would just read the Bible, and I would pray for the people that were doing these horrible things to me. And so they throw spitballs at me, they punch me in the back of the head, and I would never react. And one day, there was this kid named Chris Day. He used to be the leader of the disciples. I'm not going to say it. Never mind. It doesn't matter. He was at the time. He is not now. So really, I forgot we were going. We were live. But there was this guy Chris Day, and he was like, you know, all you guys keep messing with this dude, and all he does is read his Bible and be non-responsive. He's gone through so much torment, and he said, if one of you guys touch him, if one of you guys mess with him at all, you're gonna have to deal with me. I'm done. I've had enough. And so we got off the bus, and he was like, AJ, why do you let them do this to you? I said, because they don't know what they're doing. They're acting out for whatever reason. And I said, and I don't even look at it as them. I look at it more as practice for me to start becoming more patient, to deal with issues, and to say and to build a different strength in that. That way, when it comes time for me, I'm not going to react in different ways. I can actually sit in a pocket and look at the big picture instead of it being I need to react in this instant. So, I mean, after that, I never really had problems, but that's where compassion comes from. Even though I was going through things, I was still sitting back and I was still doing something that was different than most people, and then compassion came from that because they were like, you know what, nah, it was justified. It was justified, definitely.
Oh, that's interesting. You could be reading that part where it's like you will be like ants underneath my feet.
Oh, I would say a lot of stuff. Trust me,
Right.
because I was coming against the enemy. So yeah, there were a lot of scriptures that I had to read. That was like, I'm gonna let him fight my battle for me. So it is what it is, and it always worked. It always worked.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, they may have not been taught any form of
Spirituality.
or morality or spirituality.
Hmm.
So they really didn't know.
And I was strong in mine, so I was I was super strong.
That way, yeah. See, that would make sense because they're just kind of unconscious,
Uh huh.
just kind of operating off of what they think is fun and
Right.
not realizing that they're intervening with someone's free will,
Hmm.
you know. But that's
But
interesting.
but it's all on how you handle it.
Hmm.
So what happens is that's where you start learning how the spiritual system works. to an extent. You start realizing that as you pray or as you seek guidance, that you hear. What I would do is sometimes I would be on a bus, and a spirit would speak to me, and he would say, "Turn to First Philippians, chapter 1, chapter 1, verse 22." I don't even know if that book. I knew the book existed, but I didn't know if that chapter existed or the verse in comparison to that, because some chapters are very short, some books have more or less different things, and I turned to whatever I heard, and it was always a message that I needed to hear at that time. So I knew that it was a spirit speaking at that time. So that's when I was in constant contact and constant communion with the spirit. And I would go through school, and literally as I'm going through all these things in school, I would it was almost like I was in constant prayer, but it wasn't really prayer. It was more like a conversation, a conscious conversation with my higher power. And he would give me strength, and he would say, sometimes he would ask me to do things that I didn't want to do. He would ask me to, he's like, you know what, that kid needs money for lunch. I want you to give him the $5 that you've saved up. I want you to give that to him. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? And I'm like, and so I would be led to, I go up to the kid, and because I was told to do something in the spirit, you just do it. You don't ask questions, because you might understand the reason why you're doing it, but if you're led to do it, you just do it. So I remember going up to this kid, and I'm like, man, I don't even know who you are, but I was led to give this to you. And I gave him the $5, and I said, "You have a blessed day, man." And he looked at me, and he started crying, and he's like, "Man, my mom just lost her job, and she really didn't have enough money to go through this and this and this, and like I didn't know how I was going to eat today." And he was like, "Do you want to split like lunch?" And I'm like, "No, man, I'm good. I'm all taken care of. It's all good." I was like, "That's for you." He was like, "Thank you so much." And I'm like, "It wasn't me, but I was just a vessel and giving you what you needed. So just be blessed by it. And if you ever need to do something for somebody, or you feel like something's laid in your heart, just make sure that you listen to that." And that was it. And so I was always led by that. So I'm getting back to that point, and getting back spiritually to where I'm being led more to do certain
Oh, that's
things.
interesting.
Hmm.
I'm guessing that the spirit or whatever had like a history of reading like the Bible or something.
The what?
Oh,
Well,
really?
I'm guessing he had like a history or something in his lifetime with like reading the Bible
I
in
don't
the
think
Old
so.
Testament. You don't think so?
No, the spirit or the guy that I gave the money to?
The spirit.
The spirit's the Holy Spirit, bro.
Dude, think
Oh.
about it, dude.
The
Like,
spirit's the Holy Spirit.
yeah,
So
like that's
when
the
I
thing.
say when I say spirit on my term, it's the
Mhm.
Holy Spirit that I'm speaking to. That's the energy worker. So when I'm in constant communion with God,
Mhm.
the Holy Spirit's the one that works through. So if you read the Bible in Acts, after Christ passed away, the Holy
Mhm.
Spirit was left here to where now there's a constant connection between heaven and earth. So the Holy Spirit is the energy worker. So usually whenever you hear, like if you're in constant communion with God, or they're three separate entities, but they're all together as one in marriage. So they have three separate duties, but they're still unified as one spirit. So when I talk about the spirit, that is the Holy Spirit that I'm speaking about. So that's where I was led to.
But it's
That,
but it acts like a spirit guide,
Yes,
right?
but yeah,
Michael. In
right,
fact,
exactly,
in other
exactly.
words, here's how I might think of this.
Interesting.
It's like,
I
think
mean,
of
I've had experiences kind of like that, but I've had them with animals.
right, Michael.
Like
Like, in our
like
like, just think
animals
of
would
this.
disappear like out of nowhere. Have you had that happen to you before, AJ?
Um, if I wasn't on acid, no.
Wait,
Oh.
what'd you say,
No, like
Michael?
I've had cats like just randomly out of nowhere appear to me. I had a coyote, and I didn't want to
Oh
see
yeah,
a
I've had that.
coyote, believe me.
Yeah, I've had that happen before. I have.
Like,
And
that's the thing, Michael. Like, in other words, the spirit is just like, it's almost like this theory of pantheism, in on my end. Like,
well, the word
that's what
spirit.
Vajrayana Buddhists are. Like, there's thousands of ways that this so-called spirit manifests itself. And like in Buddhism, we have Tara, we have all sorts of deities, but they are all one particular thing.
Well, like the word spirit comes from the word, well, we have it on our thing, spiritus, which means breathe or to blow. So
Hmm.
so according to, if you look at this as thesaurus, I think I said that right. The thesaurus, when you look at the thesaurus,
Hmm.
it says
Oh,
that
okay.
spirit and breath are synonymous.
Hmm.
And that's interesting because
Spirit creates.
yeah, but the breath, like, I think, at least to me, um there was something, I think, I don't know, Jesus like breathed on his disciples, or something like that. But like the breath to me, because they always say like Jesus is like the mediator, and I look at that as like, my teacher told me this, is that the breath is the mediator between the lower self and the higher self. And he says, so, because you can always calm yourself down, usually in whatever mood you're in. If you know how to breathe, if you know the science of breath, you can pretty much, I don't want to say control the emotions, but balance. Balance them out. So
Hmm.
if you get angry or something, you just hold on.
Hmm.
Let me
Mm.
breathe.
Right.
But sometimes I think it's also, it depends. I don't believe in, because I used to, I think when I was younger, kind of do this, but I don't believe in, if you're really angry or something, you need to express that. You need to
Yeah, I don't like.
get
I
that
don't
out
do
of
that.
your system.
I don't know if it's because I've read Scorpio were like very like intuitive. So like I don't
Hmm.
know if
Hmm.
it's just kind of a Scorpio or it's just I was that way, but I like if I'm angry, I just sit there and I just relax
Same
and
here, man.
I don't let it take over me.
Hmm.
I think that's good, but I think also it just depends. It's just like, uh, a carbonated drink or
Yeah,
something.
you're gonna snap
It's like
eventually.
you don't want, yeah, and so you've gotta like calm it. If it's something little, like, you just want to like, you calm it down. But if it's something you really need to express, uh, like, you could go punch a pillow,
You can
The
also
best thing.
or
express it through
as
Last
passion.
night,
RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan suggested, uh, just have a room where you just break glass. You put the suit on
last time
and
I
just
like
break glass.
I snapped, I just went and stuck my face in my pillow and just screamed. Like I'm not gonna lie, I just put my face in my pillow and just yelled.
That's That's really good. That's actually the shamans that I was going to kept kept telling me kept telling me that, and it was interesting because basically he was giving me exercises to do, because I was just wondering like if I was on my path and certain things like that. He said go outside and observe nature, and
Yep.
just write, whatever comes to mind. So as soon as I go outside, as soon as he tells me that, it starts raining. Now, I mean, I could look at it as just, like it was gonna rain that day, but it felt like as soon as I touched the grass, it started raining.
Well,
And
that's the
and
thing.
then and then he told me that I needed to cry. And it's interesting that he says, with the whole rain.
You know, Michael, when you mentioned about that, that's the funny thing about children. And like even how you describe yourself. Like, do you realize that in a magical traditions, like I bet everyone knows this already, but like in a magical traditions, if you learn the greatest magic is when you learn to let go of your judgment and just be with the magic. And once you be with the magic, you learn to let go of that to be also. And once you did that, things happen. that's part of the principle of magic on how you create it.
Hmm.
Like that's the thing.
Well,
How
what is
come
it?
like
It
that?
just depends. What is magic to you?
Right, but like how does that work? Like how does magic work so well? Because the thing is I found out that children, like for example, when I was a little kid, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but like when I was a little kid, when I prayed that somebody has a child, the next day they get what they want, you know?
You know what it
It's all
is? You know what it is for what I find? It's all the intent. It's all what you're putting out there. It's the same thing as it's the same thing as prayer. It's the same thing. Magic is the same thing as it is the act of knowing. And the one thing that you'll find in every religion based thing is that if your intent is there and you know without a doubt that this is going to happen because you have already put that out there, it's going to happen. So it's not something that it's there's nothing really magical about anything except that you're willing it to happen, and that becomes magic to
The
you because
will.
it's the
The
right.
will.
halo effect is an example.
But like here's what I noticed.
Well,
Like
that's interesting because if you actually read now, supposedly, if you read the Psalms, if you read the Book of Psalms,
Right.
it is pretty much a spell book.
yeah,
Right.
it is,
And
dude.
supposedly it's interesting because this is based on historically from what they said that a lot of the things that were taken out of Egypt, it was, I think his name is Ankh King. I think it was Akhenaten,
Okay, that
but
sounds right.
supposedly that's actually his words written on the Psalms pages. So it's like when you read that now, it's hymns, but
Well, a lot Psalms is a lot of hymns. I mean, David,
right.
but you have to remember at that time who were those hymns for? Because David was trying to soothe Saul's spirit because he was dealing with demonic presences, and the only way that
Mm.
he could deal with those demons, the only way that he could expel the demons were by doing incantations, which is where Psalms sort of came from. So if you look at it in that sense, because he could only play the only way that he was able to soothe the demons were by playing the harp, and and he would go through these songs and he would go through these gestures and he'd go through these incantations that in certain sense that's the reason why, like, if he wasn't there, like, Saul wanted to kill him because he had, his son Jonathan, that was David's best friend best friend. So it was, that's how that Psalms got started, because all of demonic possession, really, to be honest with
Interesting.
you, it got started because of demonic
Interesting.
possession. Hmm.
Oh wow.
Well, it was actually Solomon that he had the whole. Now this is actually what supposedly well, I don't even think it's supposedly. I think that's what he was getting at. Aleister Crowley, his whole thing
Well, yeah,
was
he
he wanted to do the thing based off Solomon, was Solomon's whole I think it was it a hexagram.
well, the
Oh
deal the
boy.
deal was is that Solomon
Solomon's
was,
seal.
well, the Solomon seal. The reason why a lot of that stuff was based off that was because Solomon, being the wisest person, basically that's what he asked God for when he was granted a certain thing. God asked him, well, what do you want? And he said, well, I want to be the wisest person. So with that wisdom, he gave him everything. So, the knowledge of good and evil was kind of brought out, but it was all good to start with. So it was all positive until he started realizing that he could gain more power with having sex with different women that were of different occults. So whenever that started coming in, then he gained the magical sense. So he had wisdom on everything. And so when that came in, that's where he started doing incantations, and that's the reason why that God said, "Look, I don't want you having sex with different people that are not within your tribe because of this and this reason. And he didn't listen. He just didn't care.
Oh,
Because at
wow.
that point, he had powers. So the power was more important to him than it was on the spiritual level. So his connection was placed. That's why Aleister Crowley goes back to Solomon, because Solomon, he had
So
the
it basically said like you know, if you read the book, I mean it's funny how they say it, but they'll say like Adam laid with Eve. It just basically says it's lay. Is that what they mean?
what do you mean?
Like you'll see in the book, like if you read it, it'll say like Adam laid with Eve, and they bore a son, and so laid with so
Yeah,
and then this happened, and then that's
right.
basically they said the same thing with Solomon.
No, well, Solomon had 700 wives and concubines. He was sort of busy. He was a busy
Yeah.
he was a busy guy. But what he was doing was that he realized, but he realized at one point that it was easier for him to connect everybody together by going ahead and having sex with all these people. But what he was doing was he was also harnessing spirits at the same time. So there were people that he was having sex with that were deep into dark arts, and so that was one of the things that he was assimilated with, and he merged that with. That's where a lot of the Kabbalah teachings and a lot of all that stuff comes from, is Solomon, because it was a mixture of Judaism and one practice, but it was also mixed with alchemy, and it was mixed with other things that sort of worked with the tree of life and the understanding and the knowledge of good and evil and that whole thing. So it all tied in together. It's a very
That's
interesting topic.
interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was basically Aleister Crowley's whole thing, but he failed supposedly.
Well, he took a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
He took a lot of drugs and he went crazy. And when he started doing a lot of sex magic, is where he started invoking things that sort of, because mind you, when you're dealing with those spirits, sometimes he was really dark in what he liked to do. So when you're
Oh
invocating,
yeah.
yeah, so when you're invocating certain things and that takes precedence over your life, sometimes you start losing your sanity. There's a thin line between, um, reality is all perception. So I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
Right.
so when it comes down to it, it's really easy to lose your sense of what the normal people would
But
consider reality.
he was doing things to change his psyche. Like he said the uglier the better. Like he would have sex with like really ugly women to like
Or guys,
mess or guys to like mess with his psyche to change his perception.
Well,
basically,
like,
it was two girls in one cup before it was created. That's all I'm
That's
saying.
disgusting.
But
Yes.
that's the way it
Yeah.
was. That's the real talk. Like you,
well,
Yes.
I
like
mean,
that's the
Yes.
thing.
He
Michael,
pooped. He
when
um,
you
would
brought
poop
up
on
that,
the floor and tell people to praise his shit
and eat it, he would
and
he
eat
would
it.
he would serve it like that was he would eat his own feces. He would try and be as disgusting as possible because he wanted to break down that sense of, he wanted to get that conviction of there is nothing that dirty that cannot be done. That was just kind of like the way he was. So trust me, like
I think that's nasty, but
you
if
can
you look at
see
that,
it's a power
you
thing.
can
It's
see you can see the genius in it.
in it. Hmm.
well, that's the thing,
Even though
Michael.
I would
Like
never do
that's
that
a
shit, but
that's a funny
that's
Yeah.
thing.
because I have an ego.
Well, like that's a thing, Michael. Like that's what I realize about children is that when it comes to creating prayers or magic, it's like they are so good at it. Like it doesn't matter what
Well,
type
they're
of intent.
connected to that world. I mean, they're
Like
still.
yeah,
You
like
know,
they.
it was interesting because I was practicing qigong today, and I could see these kids like they were watching me because their parents were like over in like the little like gazebo area, and they were just playing on like the volleyball court, and I could see that like they were watching me kind of like through my peripheral vision, and then it's interesting because right as I'm about to leave, they start going ah, and they're calling themselves dragons, and they're like imagining themselves as dragons. And I was like, I remember, because I was like that, except I was shooting
Michael, that's the
energy
thing.
beams out of my hands. But like they have that. I mean, that's a good portion of magic. Like a
But
lot
like,
of the things when I think like Crowley's whole thing, when you do the invoke, or whenever you would invoke, say, a god or a goddess,
Right.
what would you do? You would dress like them, you would act like them, try to act like the particular deity that you're invoking. It's the same thing kids do with superheroes or their action figures. I mean,
that's the thing, Michael. Is like,
they're powerful,
that's what
man.
I try to understand magic all along. Is like, to what extent of your mind, or where do you store that information in your mind in such a way that creates the strongest magic? Because the thing is of course you can think about it, of course you can imagine about it, but how strong is that comparing, like, if you were to be in the moment and like you just do it and you forgot about what your intention in the first place is, and
It
then
it
you
depends.
forgot
It
about
It
depends the
depends.
magic that you're getting at.
And yeah, it does. And it also depends on your intent. If there's any wavering on, well, I don't know if this is going to, because spirit knows. So if you are going to say, like, if we're going to step into something and you don't know if it's going to happen or not, but you hope it is, there's a difference between that and stepping in and saying that I know this is going to happen because I've already spoken this. This already happened because this is what it is. So now you're creating the energy and the sense behind it is so much different. So it's where you stand, really.
Yeah,
It's where do you stand?
I'm wondering if you guys can actually hear me right now.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
I can hear
Oh,
you a lot better. Hey, Insect.
what's
Yeah,
up, Insect Wine? I remember him. He
I'm
came in
okay.
once upon a time.
I was just gonna reflect on Crowley's writings, and one thing he says in Book 4, Liber Aber, is
Oh, I
if
have that
you
book.
want to, I have it too. Cost me 50 quid, but I've got it. Um,
Interesting.
he says that if you want to invoke a god, what you need to do is to meditate on that god.
You
And
need
then
to
in a
what?
sense, you need to
So,
meditate on the god, and then in a sense you become the thing that you're trying to invoke.
Oh yeah, man.
here's
I
the
mean,
thing.
if you, I mean, I'm sure AJ has some experience, but if you know what you're doing, it can really be a magical experience.
Oh yeah. Oh
Hey,
yeah.
Ludo.
If you, I mean, especially when you get to that invocation thing, like evoking. I mean, it doesn't matter what pantheon, but I mean, say Boss for an example, because I have a strong connection to cats, so or
Well, dude,
Horus or different. I mean, they can come through while you're you know uh doing your thing, when you're having the
oh yeah,
process.
very much so. Yes. Uh, do you ever feel yourself being moved about by a higher power, like as if it's got control over your body?
So yeah, like,
I, I
since
I've been
Actually,
there.
Aleister Crowley was really all. See, the things that out of all the crazy things that he did, there are some things that I just think, like, except for having to cut yourself every time you say I think that's a little extreme. But like that all the yoga that he did, all the things that he learned from. I don't
Yeah,
remember every
it's all
yogi that taught him, but
it's all toward the same end, isn't it? It's all toward the end that you realize that you and the universe are not separate
yeah,
beings.
well, a lot of the stuff that he learned from was because of the Golden Dawn. So
Golden Dawn, yep.
do you remember that a lot of the stuff that he got was because he was in this fraternal order that he wanted hierarchy over, and he was like, "Well, I don't know. Wait a second. Oh, really? I'm not going to be able to. Oh, okay. Well, wait. Let me show you what I can do." And that's where the power and control came in, and that's where he started going down that path because they were like, well, they basically booted his ass out.
Yeah, man. No, I'll
Wait,
say,
wait, wait a
like,
minute.
I watched this movie. It was a movie basically talking about how they'd resurrect Crowley, and I watched this, I guess, on his birthday. And I watched this movie, and they were talking. It's an awesome movie, but I think you can find it on YouTube. Um, and basically, what they do is like they have this machine and technology in the future that kind of like just allows you to put on this go into this little machine and then like basically travel to the astral world like while you're awake or whatever. Anyway, I watch this movie, I go to sleep, and the dreams that I have are some crazy dreams. And I mean, I remember watching that movie, and to this day, I don't really I won't fall asleep watching some Aleister Crowley stuff because when I fell asleep and dreamed that night, this dude came to me and he was going for something that I wasn't necessarily down with, you know. But I guess he did it. You know, I'm not sure. Should have asked for my permission or whatever. But yeah, I stopped.
Did you
I
get raped?
stopped smoking.
Did you get
Not.
raped?
I didn't.
Did you get raped in your
I.
dream?
I don't want to. I don't. It's a harsh word. I want to say that I was expanding my consciousness through.
This is what it is, bro.
Yeah.
So it was like rape, but it really wasn't.
No, it was
Like
like rape.
Oh
you
my
didn't really want it
god.
to happen.
I
but you
just
were
think that's
going
a
with
harsh
it.
word. That's all I'm saying.
This is so radar now.
But you didn't. But you didn't will it. So
No, I didn't will it.
But he
it,
was
No.
going with it.
that's a violation, which would be a rape. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
In the
Yeah.
Yeah.
astral world. Like,
Have you ever heard of a book
but
called Magic Without
I mean,
Tears?
Hold on. Wait 1 second. I'm interested in hearing what he has to say on this.
yeah.
Yeah, Eze, go.
That's
Have
it.
you
Go
ever
ahead.
heard of a book called Magic Without Tears?
I
Which
have
is
not.
it's a
I
Crowley
never.
book, and it explains how on the one hand you can be interested in occult things, but not in such a way that it makes you afraid. It has a lot to do with the sovereignty of man, like book 77. It says, well, we are here. We are the things that exist, really.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm making much sense.
Well, I'm
Well,
listening.
the thing is that when I can totally relate to what he's saying, and but I feel like once you go off, and I think this is where he sort of went off the deep end, is whenever you start messing around with things that you fully might not understand. Now, of course, he understood how to guard against certain things, but I feel like, and I was talking about this earlier, I feel like especially when you have younger kids or when you have people that are trying to get into learning about arts and learning about things, they find it very interesting, and they want to gravitate towards it because they know that there's some sort of power, there's some sort of control. I'm able to do something that changes something, and once they find out, they start doing things that they kind of like don't understand about, and sometimes doors are open that can't be closed so easily. So I mean, like I said, I've always told people to be careful about. I had to be careful about what I let in my spirit, as in, even scary stories, even certain books that I would read
Same
that would
here, man.
that would have a bad thing. It would have a bad spirit connected to it, and when I would go to sleep, now I'm dealing with demonic presences in my dreams. So now I have to guard against what
Yup,
what
yup.
I let inside of my realm just altogether, because I'm being controlled by not only books but
Yeah,
certain things that I
man.
watch on
I
TV or certain. So you got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? You just got to know. You just got to know.
But
It
like
just
that's the thing, because
there's
like what you said, AJ, we all
yeah. Well,
children have
I
like
I told this
no.
I told the story before. Actually, that's so true that you say that, AJ. Let's just say, okay, I either had a girlfriend at the time or I was a while without a girlfriend, and like I got bored, and I don't know why. I guess I thought about Adam's supposed first wife.
Lilith.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
And I had no idea because I never really thought, you know, like called upon something and then because I mean I usually see like when I see things or I more so feel things than see
Right.
things.
Right. I'm the same way.
When I called upon this time, I could pretty much feel and almost see because it was in
Oh.
the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And she came,
It's a
and it
strong
was
sexual.
fun.
Yeah, it's a strong sexual energy. Super strong.
It was a lot of fun, but I felt like in the long run, it wasn't good for me. I felt.
Well, I know because it's a succubus, so there you go.
Yeah,
There you,
Bonnie.
there you go.
Yay!
Hi,
Hey,
Bonnie.
Bonnie.
I
Hey
knew somebody
Bonnie.
was
Hi, Bonnie.
missing. I
How
knew
you
somebody
doing?
was
I had
missing.
to.
You
But
You
remember?
yeah,
wouldn't
see,
believe
that's
it.
the thing. It was fun, but I mean,
You
it
wouldn't believe
wasn't
it, but
good
I
for
had
me
to.
in the long run.
You wouldn't believe it, Michael. I was like chatting with Bonnie up on Facebook, and like I had to tell her come in to get her in. It's funny.
No,
Mm-mm.
she was gonna come in regardless
I
because
just got
she
home.
she just got home.
Yeah.
She was on the
Oh,
road.
okay. I didn't know that.
And you literally sent me that like right when I logged on.
How's
Oh
that
wow.
hangover?
I was like, Andy is alert tonight.
I
It's a good
How's
know.
that
conversation.
hangover, Bonnie?
Well, that's the thing,
Oh,
Bonnie.
good.
Like,
It's
I
making me
hate
remember why I
hangovers, man.
don't drink alcohol and never ever
well,
again.
well, Bonnie, did you remember
No,
the
'cause
part?
like some people don't experience like the whole having like throwing up pretty much the whole day thing. I
I
didn't
don't
know
throw
that.
up. I just feel miserable. I
Your
feel.
head hurts. Yeah.
You know, Bonnie, like, do you remember the part where I always tell you how I'm like an overly sensitive person and like I'm this child personality? Well, eventually
Oh.
you'll get used to me eventually as I'm just getting more and more alert. That's just me playing child pranks on you.
Speaking of kid things, this is my favorite show of all time. This is my favorite cartoon.
It's like
I
a
love this
wonder.
show. It is
What
Mega
is it? What is
amazing.
it?
Babies.
What is it? I want to know. The
It's
audience
it,
also want to know.
The comment.
I just posted it up in in the group chat.
Dun, dun, dun,
The
dun,
Amazing
dun,
World of
dun,
Gumball.
dun.
I love that show. I love The Amazing World of Gumball. I don't know why I love it so much, but I do.
There's
What
new
channel did that?
people. Did you
What was
guys
the
introduce
station that came
yourselves?
on?
Did we all
Oh
play
my
that game yet?
god.
Cartoon Network. It's such a good show.
Oh
It's
my
Oh wow.
god.
it's
I mean,
so
I
good.
remember Cow and Chicken.
No, but this is no. But this is before. Like this is a new show. All the new shows because everybody's on Adventure Time, and I'm sorry, I think Adventure Time is a little crazy.
I
So
haven't
I mean,
even. Yeah.
it is what it is. This show right here, though, is so freaking hilarious. Like I'm like out loud cracking up at this show, and it's legitimately a great show. I'm just sorry, and I think it's underrated. I think more people need to watch the show. So I'm just throwing it out there, let y'all
The
know
the
the amazing.
Gumball.
Yes, the Amazing World of Gumball is the funniest show ever. you're gonna die. You're gonna die laughing. You're gonna be like, "Thank you, AJ. This is how I get my little kid."
Oh.
Since we're talking about kids, I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, yeah, like we're talking really about like the inner child. I think
This
Andy
is my
wanted
inner
to do is
child.
wonderful.
It's my inner
That's what I connect with,
This is my inner child.
On a serious note,
because some kids will eat Oreos for dinner if you let them.
You know, Michael, you were when you comment on that, I was cracking out laughing because seriously, I had tons of that over on the camp that I work at. They would start asking me for Oreos.
Yeah.
if can
It
I
just
tell?
really cracked me up.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you in a sec.
If I can just take a moment to speak. If you
Yeah, go
really
ahead.
want to talk about the relationship between magic and children, I can perhaps.
Oh well, we're really talking about like the mind of
Yeah,
the
especially the
child,
mind, but
like.
like especially like children too, because seriously, I believe Arthur Crawley does have a big relationship with children when it comes to
Oh
magic.
no, bro. Oh no.
What I was going
That's not the
to.
right guy for children.
Well, like
Definitely not.
he has something to teach for children, and I think like
I don't
Alistair
No,
think
no, no,
Crowley
no,
so.
no,
should
no, no, no,
have a
no,
I
no,
fair
don't.
no.
chance.
I don't think
He
What I
had
was
so.
maybe one child that he loved.
No, bro.
I would say
That
give
dude
that
let
a
a
PG-13
man
guy.
die
I should give him a
on a
PG-13.
mountain climbing trip.
Yeah, like I would give that guy like a PG-13 rating, so that way the
Who?
children will be warned about this.
Aleister Crowley?
He
Yeah.
is
May
a
I
rated.
speak?
He is
May
triple
I
X,
That
speak?
bro.
As
that's
everyone
triple
is
X.
talking over each
That's
other.
there's no rating for Aleister Crowley.
I
Like
got
half the
I
rating
got in
scale.
I got in trouble. I remember in freshman year for just I was talking to my friend and all I said was, which I think is silly to get in trouble for this. I didn't know you could. But all I said was two girls, one cup. That's all I said, and I got in trouble for that. So if she heard about Aleister Crowley,
uh,
Oh my God, that is so
uh,
cracked up.
Can I say something? Honestly,
Yes, please, Insect. I loved it.
oh, I
Yeah,
can't
no.
watch the Amazing World of Gumball on this one. Sucked.
Like,
Got
like,
excited for
please,
no reason.
Insect. Like, give us some insights about children and magic because seriously, I can't wait to teach children magic. Seriously.
all I was
well,
going, all I
I
was
it's
going
more
to
so.
say, please,
Let
is
him speak. Let him
isn't
speak real
isn't
quick.
it interesting how children have this sense of wonder and sense of magic that tends to be lost in. We tend to lose it over time. Some of us don't, but to them it's very real. And I don't think that sense of spirituality has to be taken away from someone. But education as it stands tends to lead everyone to believe that everything's very orderly and
Right.
there's only one way to look at things.
Hmm.
But what they actually realize at the heart of it all is that they exist. They are a conscious thing, and consciousness is something that no scientist can really explain. But that's all I was going to say.
But you know what's funny about that? There's a movie that I just saw. It's called Transcendence, and it really talks about. It really gets into that sense of consciousness, and it's like saying, well, it's basically Johnny Depp, his character. He sort of almost passes away, and they use his brain waves before he left. He's now uploaded into a computer system, and so they asked him, well, are you basically, do you realize that you're conscious? And he's like, well, do you realize that you're, and the answer comes back, do you realize that you're conscious, or do you realize what the state of consciousness that you're in, or whatever? And it's something that can't be defined. It's like, are you self-aware? Are you self-aware? Is this something, I mean, it's a very thin line between that, and it's a great movie. Like, seriously, I sent it out to Bonnie and a few others to watch.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I will put it on my list.
It's so good.
Oh, and
So
by the
good.
way, since Insect and
There's a
Bonnie
good
is
movie
here,
called Michael that I wanted to watch. My mom was talking about it. She wanted
What
to
is it?
record it. It's called Michael, and
Michael.
it's pretty much like about like this energy or this angel or whatever called Michael, and he's just
He's an.
intervening with people's lives.
Oh yeah, that's an older movie. That's with uh, John Travolta.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's with John Travolta. That's a
Wait, are
good
you talking
movie.
about Ghost?
No, no. John Travolta plays in Michael. He plays an angel that he comes down, and like he has his wings at one point, and his wings get clipped. It's a good story. It has him, and it came out. I want to say in like 90, 97, 98, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah, it came out a while ago, but it's a really good movie.
That's interesting.
So, like, here's the thing, guys. Like, before we continue on, like, since we have Ludo here, Insect is also here, and
Yeah, I know.
Brian's here,
We
we
need to
should
have
like have
another.
a little introduction. Like, introduce yourself and
Yeah,
like,
I was saying insect. I wasn't cutting you off or anything.
yeah,
It
because
was
like
lagging on my
seriously,
edge.
not many of us not
Oh, that's fine.
know
That's
about
fine.
you. Like, tell us about yourself and your inner child right now. Like, how connected are you to the so-called magic that Alistair Crowley talked about?
Me?
Yeah.
Um, I feel very much the mystery of everything. To me, every moment I spend awake or even asleep, I can't even tell the difference sometimes. It's just a being aware, isn't it? It's very mysterious, I find. There is no way to put it into words.
It sounds like
That's why I think that's why Crowley talked about he said all of these magic practices and rituals were to put you in all to put you in the same state of mind, which is just realizing that you are aware.
you are. So you sound, yeah, yeah. I can tell like what you're going through is like you're in this blissful state, and that somehow you're like neither this overly happy side of me like over here, but you're not completely depressed either. I was like, wow.
Wait,
Now,
what?
Ludo, you haven't spoken much either. So what's up with that?
Yeah, I'm from the Netherlands. I just found out that Google Hangout exists, and yeah, I'm quite interested in the topic
Okay.
because to spend
Ludo.
Well,
more
yeah,
time on it.
true that. Where are you from again?
The Netherlands,
The what? Where?
The
the
Netherlands,
Netherlands
Oh, the
in
Netherlands.
Europe.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, got you.
Germany, close
Got
to
it.
Germany. And
Yeah,
Insect
yeah.
came from Britain.
Wait,
I've known him
Yeah.
from when we were in Esoteric Online.
okay.
Is cannabis legal there?
No.
Yes,
Awesome.
but I have never used it in my life, really.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because it damages your brain, and
We
Ludo, I have a
no, it
question
doesn't.
for you.
your brain, and it yeah explodes your
Oh,
aura.
I thought it was memory.
No,
I've
It's strange that governments advocate alcohol more than they advocate cannabis.
Hmm, funny.
well, but it says it. Damn it! Now I'm really interested in what he has to say about marijuana and damaging your brain, and or
I can show you the example. I have it in one book. I'm gonna take it for you so you have an image.
okay. This is gonna be interesting. It's gonna
I
be
mean,
interesting.
I just remember Harold and Kumar going to Amsterdam.
I've been there too.
Looks like such a beautiful place.
We have it in Colorado, bro. We have it here. In
Oh yeah.
oh, how soon we forget that there's a majority of the states are now legalizing weed.
I hope
Okay, so
if
let's
you're
start.
gonna use drugs, your aura is gonna look like this.
What?
Now, now is that what kind of drugs is that entailing that does
L-
that?
Yeah,
I'm
all
sorry.
other drugs, that you store it in your, yeah.
Is that how to
What book
is
is
that
that?
is that how to write a silver broomstick or
I don't know.
no? I really want to know what book that is.
What's the book called?
Light
Wait,
on your aura,
light of
in
the
Dutch.
Okay.
light of the aura.
Just Light of the Aura.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Because I know certain things like Dorian Virtues, like if you eat a lot of dairy, like you'll have a funky aura, or
Yeah.
certain things.
It's the
But
easy
I
way,
didn't
and
know cannabis. Because I'm saying, what if you made it in a tea?
It would have
no,
the same effect. But the thing is that there's so much enlightenment that happens from it sometimes, depending upon what you smoke. That I find that to be sort of I
I
find
know.
I find it to be sort of difficult because there's so many different strands and there's so many different types that are used for healing and medicinal purposes
There are.
that I don't understand how that could correlate. Matter of fact, I knew a kid one time. He was suffering. He was literally suffering from leukemia, and his mom she didn't want him going through chemo because every time he went through chemo he kept getting worse and worse, and she didn't want to put all these chemicals in his body. Well, what she started doing is she started doing research on marijuana, and I mean, mind you, the kid was 5 years old. So
Oh
she
wow.
right, but the thing is that she started going to places to where she talked to doctors about it, and she's like, look, I really don't want him on all these drugs. It's causing him to lose his hair. He's feeling really weak. His bones are really brittle. Like, it's really, really bad. Let's try this regimen. So she moved to another state. She moved to Colorado, and she started doing treatment for him. And he is now in remission. He smokes on a regular basis, or more like he ingests it. What they give him. He is, and it's just been marijuana treatments that he's been on, and that's worked for him. And the leukemia has been in remission for about 2 years now. So I mean, there are cases to where
Wow.
it's
yeah,
if
that
it's
are
used. What's up?
that are exceptions.
There are no exceptions.
No, what you're talking about is just an exception.
It is, but I mean, but you have to realize that you should do.
Cannabis can save lives. It's a blunt fact. It's been proven.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't think that there's anything negative by smoking.
Well, I mean, from what I read, it's a really good book. It's called Keys to the Living Library by Barbara Marciniak. She writes a lot of the information in the Pleiadians, and she says that Earth grows things to help you understand her better.
Right.
And she
And
said
why,
that
and why
a
would
lot of
some,
the. No, go ahead.
yes. I was going to say, how does anyone have the right to make something illegal, an organism that comes naturally out of the earth? Isn't that a bit like making dogs illegal? Or,
Wow,
it's
that's a good point.
ridiculous.
Well, the problem is, and this is the deal. This is where a lot of it came in, especially for America, and since in the 1920s and the 1930s, cocaine was legal.
Yep.
So whenever there was a problem, and cocaine and weed went hand in hand, and so what they did was they put a prohibition on both, and they stopped both from going on, and made it both illegal. And so when that happened, it was more of a control factor. It was more of a scare tactic that they try and use to say that this is the reason why this is happening. And so and at that time as well, they also illegalized liquor. Well, they were able, because so many people were drinking. The cocaine thing was one thing, and weed thing was another thing, but so many people were drinking and having parties and underground things that they eventually overturned it and made it legal again. But the other two were still set as illegal. That's the only reason why weed was illegal from the get-go, because it was legal before that. It was legal here in the United States, at
Wow.
least.
Well, no, Sigmund Freud advocated the use of cocaine while he said it helped him think.
You know,
Well, it
Oh
like
no,
does.
well, maybe that's a cigar. But
No,
he
well,
said it helped his anxiety. It helped him calm down. And
But like that's the thing, Michael. When you brought up like
I
the
mean,
concept
actually,
of
my mother
drugs.
was the cocaine plant for her school play when she was little.
Wait, what? Are you
Because
kidding me? No way.
and that's the education, that's the school. But
Wow.
nobody, everybody just thought it was a beautiful plant back then. Nobody had any. Uh,
oh, they knew. Oh, they knew. Yeah.
You
well, it
know,
wasn't
that's
illegal back then, is what I was saying.
Yeah.
that's what's really weird. Is like when did we start telling our kids that drugs are bad for you and all
19,
sorts of stuff?
1970s, 1960s. That's why.
No one should.
Oh
No
yeah,
one should
yeah,
take anything that changes the way you see things.
Exactly.
That's inherently bad.
Right.
Right, because that's the thing. Like from what
but
you guys said, children they don't seem to know exactly what is good or bad. They just know that it is, and then they just do it because they like it. But when did we start instilling this fear that drugs are bad and you shouldn't be taking it? Because I felt like the more you do that, the more when they get older,
They
they're gonna
rebel.
try. They would
Right.
try.
yeah,
Exactly.
they rebel.
They rebel. And I mean, and Andy, I'll tell you this. I mean, in my experience, I mean, going back from the '60s, once the hippie movement really started taking place, people started becoming more aware, and they wanted to get that connection. And LSD really became like really prominent on the streets. So that was another transcending into another realm and seeing other states of consciousness that they weren't really able to get a grasp on. Which when you see people tripping nuts, I mean that's already something that's regular people that aren't doing that are looking at them like they're crazy. So that puts out a different connotation. Now in the '80s, that's when they did the whole DARE program. So now they're teaching it in schools, drugs, what is it? Whatever DARE stood for, because I can't even remember how long ago it's been. But that was mandated by yours truly, President Ronald Reagan. So Ronald Reagan set all these stances because there was a big in the '80s crack, and a whole bunch of things were introduced into the scene, and it was tearing down society faster than anything.
Right.
And so that's the reason why that negative connotation was placed there, because in the '80s with the crack revolution and it tearing down not only ghettos, but you have white middle class America that are now becoming homeless and on the streets because of this strong addiction towards this drug that wasn't around back then. It
Yeah.
started really breaking down barriers, and they were like, no, we're just gonna we're just gonna stop this right now. That's why.
The whole
Yeah,
thing.
like
Broken
here's the
glass everywhere. People pissing off the stairs. They just don't care.
But do you care more about society, or do
But
you care more about the individual?
right. It's like, and in fact, that's the funny thing. Like, children, we should be teaching our children to be themselves in such a way that, like, when you set an intention to like experience a drug, we should set an intention that, oh,
Wait,
I'm
who is
doing it
our
because,
children?
like, the 12-year-olds. Like, if you
Just in
guys are
general.
parents
Oh.
or
No,
children in
no,
general, so yeah.
not stop debating on it, but
Alright, I'm just saying, how many children do you come into, like...
Well, Michael, think about it. I dealt with 80 of them in the past 2 years of my life already. So,
I don't this is the deal. I think that there needs to be an open discussion with kids when they're ready, when you see that they're old enough to sort of know.
Yeah.
Because this is the deal. I'm not going to advocate my kid doing drugs if they're not the best thing to do is to not do it at all.
yeah.
But if you go down the path that you want that enlightenment, okay, now let me explain to you what and how it's done, because I've done it all and I know exactly what
Doing that does not want to be enlightened.
what's
well,
up.
and be warned, AJ, you're actually
Oh, you've
on
done it
live,
all?
so therefore this content is for not only adults, but for children too. So pretty much they're gonna be searching for my YouTube channel.
It doesn't matter. Ludo, for example, has not done anything. So I mean, if he hasn't smoked weed, I'm assuming that he hasn't done anything else. So just taking that into consideration.
I'm surprised.
No, but I'm not. But okay, but he's smiling, so I might. There might be other things that he has taken. So I'm not sure.
No, on drugs, no.
Okay, so now there's people that just are like that. They have no inclination to try and find out what, like, that. Does that mean that they're not gonna, that they don't have this sense of enlightenment? No, that just means that that's not something for them. As to where there's others that go through certain situational things, either it be problems in family, it being a hereditary thing that's been passed down from family member to family member, like alcoholism and or drug addiction. There's been certain things that just are triggers for people that they experience certain things, but the problem is with now today's society is that the older people aren't really teaching the younger people before they take the drug what's going to happen. As to where when it was on more of a spiritual level whenever I took acid, or it was on a spiritual level whenever I took ecstasy, as to where we all sit around in a group and it's like, if you don't have this understanding and this awareness, let me tell you about the experience you're about to have. If there's anything that you need, this is a conscious place of love. This is for a more understanding about spirituality. This is going to take you to another level. It was on a different level. So you had a different. It wasn't just for the fun of taking the drug. It was more about what you can find out about your self-awareness and how the certain things that you can see and learn from in this experience. So when you go into it with that mindset, now it's something totally different. But I mean, a lot of kids are just taking things and they don't know what they're taking, and all of a sudden, boom, they end up dead, or and it was never like that. So I think society has changed a whole lot.
The best thing we can do is educate.
That's what Timothy Leary said. Is that you should be, if you're going to take them,
Respect it.
You should, and it's not for recreational purposes. You're going to have a, enlightened experiment. Like, there's the whole thing with ayahuasca. Like,
exactly.
you're not going to take it to, like, sit on the couch and be like, whoa. Like,
well, wait, Michael.
like,
here's something that I need to address. In fact, this is so prevalent in the medical industries nowadays. I don't know if you're going to get into shock about this insect, or any of you, or even you, Ludo. Like, I found out that several of the children that I work with, they always had this complaint that they always ask questions, and even their parents is like, to what extent should I get my child on drugs? Especially like for ADHD or for those so-called mental disorders, because they thought they were crazy. And then next thing you know, they're like, do I reach enlightenment from those drugs, or what happened?
No, Dorian Virtue talks about that in her book, and she's interviewing all these kids who are, now I guess indigo adults, or they're in their early or late teenage years.
Yeah, because
what she was saying is that the kids were saying is like, I don't know why they push all this. It's kind of hard to say kids not to take drugs when they have to show up to the nurse's office or whatever to get Ritalin, to get Prozac.
I agree.
I feel that telling kids
because even those can be addictive.
If you think about it, if you think about it, some of the most strong and addicting drugs are the over-the-counter stuff too.
That's true.
Yeah, well, especially alcohol. And I feel that all telling the children that they shouldn't take drugs, all that achieves is gives them the desire to do it.
Right.
Because it's you go. Why shouldn't I?
You have the little kids.
You have the natural capacity to want to go against everything that you're told, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone tells you you shouldn't do this,
they do.
What are you going to do?
They want to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
like
if
something says, "Do not push this button." It depends if you're really little.
Like, what do you want to say, Matt? Because I want to know.
And like what he was saying, like they tell them not to do it, but you have some of those people that be like, "Ooh, they told me not to. Now I want to do it even more.
Right.
Nothing's gonna stop me
Yep.
from doing it
I,
now."
And like, here's the funny thing. Like, I don't know if Ludo agrees with me on this one, but like, when I actually had a chance to read on articles about how children works, this one dude that I found out that he worked with children for like almost 10 years already. He said that he what he did is that he's going to first like when he first walked into a disruptive classroom. He at first like the children would just rowdy and just start throwing things all over the place. But when he said, "I thank you guys for being so quiet today and that you are not being rowdy," and then all of a sudden the whole classroom just went in silence in just a couple of minutes or even a second. Like,
Yeah,
do you guys have any idea how that works? Like, that's so
yeah.
it's
I have
reverse
experience on
psychology.
that. And
that is so weird.
yeah, but children can feel how
That must be
you
Bonnie.
feel from the inside.
It's like saying
Ba
do
ba
not
ba
pick
ba
the
ba ba ba
colour blue.
Bonnie.
All right, guys, come on, let Ludo speak. Come on.
Do not
Children
think
can
do
feel.
not think of the colour blue.
Children can feel how you feel from the inside, and if you are playing a role, children reflect that to you that you are playing a role. And if you are truly honest to yourself, children can feel that, and you have to give them some space to
I agree
allow
with
them
that.
to, yeah, be natural. And if you're natural, they reflect the same. And
You
all
know,
things that are coming up, the thing is not interrupting, because in our mind we think, oh, we need to control, or that's not, it's inappropriate to do. But if you let it go, there's no problem. And that's also in the classroom or with children. The thing is to stop trying or to uh, influence them,
Hmm.
because you cannot. But the problem with today's children is that they eat too much sugar and drink too less water, and that are the answers they need.
As you
Yeah.
can see in my case.
Yeah, I think diet does have a lot to do with it with kids, which I mean, I wasn't allowed to eat sweets when I was younger. Thank God, because I don't have a craving
Oh
for them
wow.
now.
well, what about
I guess wasn't, but I mean, my family monitored because they were buying the food and what was coming in the house. It was very. I mean, we had vegetables all the time. We ate healthy. There wasn't candy lying around the house. There was. I mean, very seldom would there be a bag of chips just sitting there. There wasn't junk food. There wasn't anything where it was like, no, that's not
Every
appropriate.
fruit, every fruit bearing seed shall be for your food.
And and
Right.
Oh wow. No, but that I mean
also
that's good
No, it was
I've
good
that
got
you got
that
because
that.
apple in the corner. You should never eat that apple over there.
what I think is now is that parents, they don't want to raise their kids, so they just
correct.
like, here's some food, here's video games, go just go do whatever, just don't bother me. Like that's how a kid.
oh yeah.
And that's the reason why I was blessed and being in a family to where my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was able to really instill a lot of values with schooling and advocate a lot of things, and I was always ahead because um, the school system in Florida sucks. It really does, to be honest with you. So what she would do is she'd get accelerated books where I was doing schoolwork, plus I was doing homework that she had, and really trying to get a few grades ahead of where it was down here. But not everybody has that luxury, and so when that happens, and when it comes down to the food and the spirituality as well, so all that stuff, I basically had a good grounding. But you know,
Like for me, kindergarten or first grade, I was still learning to read. Before I had these like little sets of small books. time before I wanted to play, like I'd only get like an hour or 30 minutes, and every time that I wanted to play, I'd have to go read to my dad the books and like work on my reading. And
Right,
then
exactly.
he would reward me by letting me play the PlayStation.
That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it works. I mean, nope. Ludo, can I get your Facebook?
I had something similar like
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah, just add me on.
Okay. Are you part of the Wake Up
I
group?
think
What
it
kind
was.
of wake?
I think it was a Game Boy though.
But
Yes. Hey, Ludo. Like, I'm actually part of the Wake Up also because I'm
No!
from.
Just what a coincidence.
Hey,
what Wake Up though? Wake Up
it's
Now?
actually a Buddhist sangha that was started by this guy named Thich Nhat Hanh. He's actually Vietnamese, and like we were part of the same race also. So yeah, I know that guy.
What? Okay, that's
Wake up.
We're not
I
talking
never saw
about
that
now,
today.
though, right?
What?
Because we're against them. We're not against them.
I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what the Wake
Huh?
Up group. I'm interested in knowing though. I'm interested in knowing.
Okay.
In fact, the Wake Up group
Wake
is actually.
up!
Do you know the what do you call it? The Plum Village sangha from Thich Nhat Hanh. He's actually the founder of
I
that sangha.
know. I know
He's the founder
Kakiro
of
Village.
I don't know. Yeah, I definitely don't know
Yeah,
any of that.
Ludo. I personally can't find your Facebook. Like, there's so many Ludos in here right now. I have no idea.
Andy, what's yours? And
That's an interesting name.
Can you type your name? I search you.
What does Ludo mean?
Playing. It's from Ludara in the Greece.
Wow.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. What did it mean?
Ludara is playing.
A plane, like
Playing,
an airplane.
playing.
Nice.
Like with toys. Playing.
Oh, okay. On a higher plane.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how about this? I'm gonna type in mine, and then you can try and find me.
Okay.
Actually,
I've been going.
it should be under AJ Galloway, and you should be able to find me.
Well, all right. So here's the thing. Like, since Bonnie didn't have a chance to talk about
The
her
Astral
childhood,
Ludo.
like Bonnie didn't have a chance to talk about her childhood or anything, or how she's in touch with her inner child. But like, here's the thing: how do you guys be able to know that if we are creating a great environment for kids to grow? You know, because the thing is I know AJ, you have to really be that parent that puts the time and effort and the mindset towards that child, not just simply like you're gonna just, you know, give whatever and expect the result to come out. That's not gonna work.
What in the heck is going on?
Yeah, what is that?
I have no
What?
idea.
What is going on?
Okay,
I mean, somebody is beating
Wait,
that mic
why'd
like
you
this,
mute
like
me?
this, going out of style.
I thought it was you.
Were you cleaning your
wasn't me.
microphone or something?
It was like somebody was cleaning something. They were beating it like it was going out of style. I
All
was
right,
like,
whoever
whoa.
was doing that, can you please mute it because I have something to ask you guys because that was like a little disruptive.
It wasn't me.
It's all right. Well, like here's the thing, like we know that children nowadays, like they've gotten a lot more sensitive. Like they improved, like by tenfold compared to the last time, the previous generation, where if we were to be given a toxin, we can survive out of it. But if you were to give it to them, they're not going to tolerate it. But like, how do we build develop that environment that children can be able to grow to their maximum potential? What constitutes that growing potential, that growing environment for them? Because otherwise, if we were to keep up our bad parenting from previous times, that's not gonna. They're gonna wither.
I do not believe in styles.
Well, like at least the heart or the intention sets the tone for it, right?
I do not believe that um, children are going to change to a great extent just in one generation. I think basically us and our parents are the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't understand where you're coming from by saying that there is a vast difference
I
there.
don't know. I think every generation, like my parents used to, or I think my dad used to tell me this, or he said, like, every generation tries to do better than the previous generation. So I think in that context, because I remember, when I was little, I was I was out of this world, man. There was just something about me that I just felt like different in the sense of, and different in the way that I felt like I was here to change something, like I was gonna save the world,
We all
and
we
I
all feel
think
like
that's really what the planet calls for, is souls that come here to do that type of thing.
a
So as long as you
revolutionary.
keep yeah,
We need a revolutionary.
yeah.
But the
We
thing
are
is,
the revolutionary.
we
Say you want
always
a
need.
revolution, well.
But you see,
Mm.
it will remain
But
the case
I'm
forever.
saying, like, and I say, because my parents were from the '60s, and me being born in the '90s. I mean, I wish I was there. I wonder where I was. But a lot of that energy, a lot of that activism, that with Martin Luther King,
But we're all
Jimi Hendrix, that energy just somehow seemed to be just like poured into me because it was the era that they were from. So it's interesting. I think the parents have a lot to do with it, but I think it also has to do on the development, the soul development, and when they come in, and what the
So,
planet really needs at the time.
so what about you,
Especially if you're doing
Bonnie?
what Aleister Crowley was doing with the whole Moonchild thing, then
Well, yeah, occasionally the planet needs a proper prophet, like a Muhammad, a Jesus.
mhm.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what about you, Bonnie? Like, how do you want
If you're
to
having
set
a
the stage
Moonchild,
for these so-called children? Because, like, I know you have been having experience with children for 6 years already.
I know me.
What? What's the question? Sorry.
Like, what will you do to set the stage for these children that will start a revolution for our society tomorrow? Like, how should we set the stage for
say
them?
you want a
Well,
contribution.
I think that we should be examples of light and love and, incorporating yoga. Like, I was 22 when I started yoga. Like, why? Why wasn't I younger? I don't know. Just making a culture that is accepting of the holistic arts and
correct.
also teaching the holistic arts from an early age. A place where schools actually have like areas where sacred spaces maybe could be had, or just meditation and breathing and teaching kids their own inner power before it taken from them, essentially. Yeah.
They pretty much teach children, I mean, the basics of meditating. They're like crisscross applesauce. I mean, there you have your lotus pose right there. I mean,
Like,
Yeah,
But
they
here's
need to do more yoga. They need to do more
yeah,
yoga in schools. They
there's
need to do.
no
yeah. In
talk
fact,
about.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
you
I
know,
mean,
they
Bonnie.
really
I
do.
remember in physical education, like what we used to do. We do a whole bunch of exercises, stretching. We do walking, and then there'd be this little fur ball looking thing, and we throw it at each other. And if you threw it at a person, you got hit. You're pretty much out of the game. Yeah, not
Like,
too much
yeah, that's the
yoga.
thing. Guys, did you
That was
realize?
fun though.
like you wouldn't believe this, but like when I looked up like the United States regulations on like how we should put how should we educate our children in
The
schools,
United
I
States
found
of
out that in Arizona or New Mexico, I don't know what state it is, but like they said that they banned yoga in physical education class. I was so mad at how they did that.
We never had it, so I mean, I don't think that that's.
I
They
think
definitely
that's.
should have.
And
I
like
mean, it's
they,
silly if they, because
it
yoga
is silly.
means union.
It is
Right.
So
silly.
how
Did
can
you
you
guys
ban union?
Yes, yes.
like that's
May I ask Bonnie a question?
Especially you want to call
Yeah.
this the United States.
Bonnie seems to be the expert on yoga
Are we
here.
not
So,
supposed to be states of union?
Michael, let him
I don't
speak.
know that I'm an expert. I do a lot of meditation. I teach
what I
meditation.
wanted to ask you is, what is the goal of yoga? What is the state of mind that you're trying to put yourself in by
You have to
doing it?
contact with your body, and that is
Yeah,
who you
I
are.
think it's more than just connecting with our body. I think it's aligning the body, mind, and spirit connection. And I think it's also about getting into a place, um, finding your own inner peace, and then being able to, from that, learn how to take it out into the real world. Um, it's just so incredibly healing. So the goal is essentially to find a flow, to find your own personal flow of your breath and matching it with the movements. And what I love about yoga is that you can put intentions out, and it's kind of like magical because then you can watch the intentions happen, you know. But really, it's just a place of experiencing life in a different way without the judgmental thoughts. So, witnessing of non-judgmental thoughts, essentially.
you know, Bonnie, when you brought up
Sounds
that point about yoga, I found out that when I try teaching yoga to children or even those with developmental disorders, it's funny how they actually like they did it without even realizing that they're doing it. They just know that they're moving their bodies.
Can I speak again?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I would just like to say, as regards sensations such as when we see things, when we hear things, it's not really, we're not looking intention, we don't have the intention to look at the things we're seeing. We don't have the intention to hear the things we're hearing. And it's not really the light or the movement of air that isn't the experience.
Hmm.
Like I can look at a light and I can hear a sound.
Oh, okay. I get what he's trying to
See
tell
what
you.
I'm
It's
saying?
like,
It's not the light. I'm not really seeing light. I'm not really hearing the air moving.
So then what are you saying? Are you talking about conceptualizing just a sense of reality? Because if we're going back to the whole intent, if we're going back to the whole intent thing, how strongly do you believe that's your reality? How strongly are you sending that out there? Like, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know how strongly. I
but like, I think I know what Insect is trying to tell you. It's like when you look at a light, or if you look at the word Om, it's not just this this so-called word Om that was there in the universe, or it was just that sound. It was a culmination of something of many different things all together that makes that thing. And
mm,
as a child, you somehow felt that,
Well,
or in
But you know what's funny?
yoga.
If you don't give intent to a word, then it has no power. See, that's the thing. See,
yes,
a word is just a word. like you can say whatever words you want to say, but
For instance,
just like
God.
It's the
just
intention behind it.
it's the intention behind it. So, like, if you look at a bad word and you say somebody comes up to you and says something, well, if that word does not apply to you, and it even though their intent might be whatever, it's not going to affect you in any way because it's just a word. But it's when that intention is behind it that makes you that wants to degrade you or bring you down to a certain level, then you're feeling the intent behind the word. That's the feeling that you're feeling, not the word itself, but you're feeling the intent. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing when it comes down to anything that you any incantation or any prayer or anything that you're putting out there with yoga or with Reiki or with anything. It's the intent and what you're doing it that you're sending out there, and that comes back to you. That's just from my sense.
Yes. For instance, when people say that they're Satanists, and everyone goes, "Oh, I'm scared. I'm so scared. We better run away." But there is, it's just what it means to them that's important.
Right.
Right,
They're
right. And
not
in fact,
they're not really saying that they are intentionally evil. They're just saying, "I believe in something different than what you believe in." And at the end of the day, these are all just words.
Hmm.
right, in other words, the what do you call it? The word doesn't make a person, it's the intention behind the
Yes,
person that makes the
yes,
Right.
person.
That makes it.
Like, that's the funny thing. Like, when someone, that's why I always tell some of the teenagers that I work with is that if that, if you went through a breakup or if somebody calls you whatever it is, it's not always applies to you. Sometimes it tells a lot more about that person than you, you know? And like that's the funny thing. A lot of those teenagers are like, I didn't know that. I didn't take that. I didn't know that I shouldn't be taking that seriously. And I was like, oh wow. And they even took me as though I'm this so-called person that knows a lot of stuff. And I said, that's just common sense.
Yeah,
Can
but
I
Andy, did you always? But Andy, now wait a second. Now, when that guy took your lollipop on the bus, and they said certain things to you on the bus, that wasn't something that you automatically knew. That was something that you had to learn how to step into it. It wasn't like you already knew that negative intention that you had control over whether or not over your feelings and what they said to you, because even though the intent was there, you could either make or break that and not let that affect you. That's something that you learn through time. So not everybody is at that place whenever you had to go through your cycle just like everybody has to go through their cycle to figure out who they are as a person. So you don't want to judge anybody based on or make them feel like they're any less superior than you because they're at a different point, though.
Right, but like the funny thing is how these teenagers they took me as though I'm like their so-called leader or guide, and I was like, that just means that I have been through the cycle just
Because you
like
put
you.
yourself in that position.
Right,
Right,
but it's not common sense. It's not common sense to everybody. It's something that you might have now been accustomed to for quite some time, which seems like common sense. You have to put yourself back into their shoes and remember the days when it was like, wow, I was going through certain things and I had to learn this the hard way. It wasn't always easy for me. And once you do that, then it becomes a place of understanding instead of judgment. It makes it a little bit easier for them. You know what I'm saying?
oh yeah. In fact, like, well, since we had to wrap things up because like it's
Maybe
already
they
12
never
o'clock
had a
already.
lollipop before.
But like,
You know?
from what like here's the funny thing that from what we've been talking about, like when we were in our inner child, is that we need to learn how to be aligned with the intention that we created in the first place. Because the thing is if you don't have an intention, manifestation doesn't exist. Even life doesn't exist. And that's the thing. If you want to live, or if you want to be this
Climb on the
so-called mind
magic
being, you had
school
to.
bus.
Yeah, you had to manifest like the magic school bus. So yeah, the only question is, what do you want to manifest? If you were to be that little child. So if you want to stay back, just stay in the chat and
I'll stay back.
well, we're gonna have to say goodbye to the internet. But thank you guys, whoever's watching out there.